Well, good day, our friends. It's Jordan and Katie.
Hello.
We are coming to you from DeSmet, South Dakota. And if you've seen some of the other videos that we've done while we were out here, we got to go see where Laura Ingalls Wilder, one of the houses that they lived in when they first came to town, which was a surveyor's house. And then we also were able to show you the school that Laura and her sister Mary went to. And then a house that Charles built and the family eventually moved into. But during the time in between the surveyor's house and the house that he built, there was 7 years where they lived on what's called the Ingalls Homestead, and we're gonna check out a little bit of that today. Daze with Jordan the Lion and you all, and Katie. It begins right now. What we're gonna check out today though is actually where the homestead site was, and Laura writes about Charles planting some cottonwood trees, and we found them, so we're gonna share those with you today. So our friends over at the Laura Ingalls Wilder Historic Homes Museum actually told us about this and told us where we could find Pa's cottonwood trees that he planted. Now, on this same property is, I believe, a memorial like rock showing where their home was. But what we found out was that when they came to town, Charles was the founding father of this town. We heard that it was basically a railroad town. It was just, you know, the trains passed through it, and since nobody lived here, the railroad got to name the town. And so they named it DeSmet. Charles was the only, I guess Almanzo actually purchased a home site or claimed a home site here, but he didn't stay on it. He left and came back. So Charles is considered the founding father of this town. And the way that you would get property, right, Katie? They said you had to live on the homestead for 5 years.
5 years and
build a home.
Build a home, yes.
And farm on it, I believe.
Well, probably farm on it or just make good use of it somehow.
Yeah, and then you could claim the land for your own. So one of his friends in town got on him while he was living at their surveyor house and said, hey, you better go claim some land. Apparently the story was that there was a wolf in town. Charles chased the wolf out of town, and that's how he found this property. Pretty cool story. So they said Laura would have lived here for 4 years. What they did that you may not know is when Laura wrote the books, she omitted a few of the towns that they lived in. Some of the towns they went back and forth, and she thought it would be confusing. So some of the timelines, when people say, oh, well, how does she remember living at this place when she was 2? Well, she was actually 5 when she lived there. So there's about a 3-year difference. So she lived here with them for 4 years, then married Almanzo, who was 8 years older than her. And I believe she was 17. She was a teacher by then. And then she moved with Almanzo right up the road, a couple of miles. And then Charles and Carolyn stayed here for the next 3 years. And I guess from what we understood, Charles just was getting older and decided he didn't want to farm the land. So he built that house in town, and that's where they moved into. And we toured that. So if you want to see it, you can watch our other video, get a full tour, and see actually where Charles died. So this says, this is the homestead site. Charles and Carolyn Ingalls and their daughters, Mary, Laura, Carrie, and Grace. In 4 of her Little House series, stories of pioneering by the Ingalls and Wilder families, Laura Ingalls Wilder, beloved writer for children, has told of the fall and winter the family spent at a railway construction camp by the shores of Silver Lake. That's the book, actually. So it says 1879 to 1880 was when that would have been, that's when that year would have happened. Then they moved to the town site of DeSmet, which was talked about in Little Town on the Prairie, a mile west. It says to live in the Ingalls store building briefly, then moved to a claim shanty on this site across the big slough from town. Here Pa planted the cottonwoods that still stand, and Ma made a home for her family. After the October blizzard, they returned to the town to spend the long winter, 1880 and 1881, which we actually show quite a bit of the story of that in the videos from Laura's home. They talk a lot about it in the school. So then it says that one of the schools Laura was to teach was a mile south of this site. In these happy golden years, she told of the romance and marriage to Almanzo Wilder and their life in a claim shanty 2 miles north of DeSmet, where their daughter Rose Wilder Lane, journalist and author, was born. Miss Wilder died February 11th, 1957, age 90, at the farm in the Ozarks near Mansfield, which I have taken us to in Missouri, where they had lived since 1894. Yeah, so Katie, what is the story? You know, we found out that they eventually moved. Laura was the only one that was not buried here in town because her and Almanzo moved out to Mansfield. And it was, what was the story that they had a neighbor that was going, and the farming here was just very difficult, I think they said, right?
Well, I remember Eric saying when we were taking that wonderful tour, it was beautiful. I mean, this is about the time when the winters lifted, and it was just a really, really hard lifestyle out here. I mean,
he said very cold winter.
Winters killed people out here. It legitimately killed people out here. So they were out in the middle of nowhere. This was just this is land they're just discovering.
Yeah.
I mean, in general, in our
hardly
country,
anybody in town.
Country.
We
Yes.
saw that Charles helped build the church and was a mason here in town, and when the church was started, there was only 8 people as the parishioners to that church, and 2 of them were him and Carolyn. So pretty interesting story. They tried to make it out here. I mean, we saw that long winter was so bad that the railroad had to shut down, which was the main reason for this town. They would try and dig out. It was like 6 feet of snow. They would dig out the path in front of the train and they couldn't even keep up. So that's how bad it really was. And to think this was the homestead, like right here is where that cabin or that shanty where they would have started and everything would have been. But this was also, for all those books that we know, this was the longest place that they lived. They lived on this site for 7 years. They lived in this town since they came in 1879, and they said that the last person to leave, I believe, was Carrie, which was 1923, something like that. So the family was in town here for a long time. Now, Rose was born in this town, and the site has burned down, and we'll talk about that because we're going to go out to that site and show you. But one of the great things is that one of the things we found out taking the tour that they told us was that when they came to town, Laura describes in her books a town with no trees. So Pa was planting the cottonwood trees, and these are those trees today. They are still here on his property. There are 5 of them. And the people that run the museum were so nice. When we bought something, they gave us a little twig of it as a memento. So it's kind of cool. Just this, you look at it right here. Over here is, they do a Laura Fest every year where they put on a pageant and all that. So that's very active. But right here, you can just see this would have been the same land that Mom and Pa would have looked out 100 years ago. So we definitely, I would say, had a great time in this town. We're going to come back and check out the interactive experience on the homestead, but we wanted to at least see this. Katie, how cool? I mean, I loved it. What did you think of this town and what we've kind of learned about the Ingalls here?
I think it's really a testament if you've read the books, to be perfectly honest. I mean, we were listening to them during our car ride, kind of doing our research like we like to do. And it's amazing when you hear Laura in her words talk about the swaying grass in the prairie, how it was so pretty and green and rolling in the blue skies. I mean, we're standing where she was writing about. And a lot of it looks very similar. You can definitely see how accurate
it's still almost like a one-horse town, you know. It's like a one-road town, kind of.
Absolutely. So it's just very, very cool being back here. This is living history.
You really get a feel for the family when you're out here on the property. More Pa's trees, 5 cottonwoods.
Pa, your cottonwood cottonwood trees are blooming once again.
So again, big thank you to the Laura Ingalls Wilder Historic Homes Tour and Museum. They were invaluable in giving us amazing information. You can also pick up a tour map right here, but they are so kind. They will help you with anything you want to find here in town. And we're coming back. They offered to take us on a little tour of the town and show us all the places that Laura wrote about in town. But we will also come back, do the whole Ingalls homestead experience, see how the Ingalls lived out here. Well, we had to come out and check this out. This is the former location of the Wilder homestead and where Rose Wilder Lane was born. Right out here, right on this hill, is where their home location was. That is incredible. They told us when we took the tour that Rose wrote like over 100 books, and also ghost wrote books, proofread and edited books. I mean, she was huge, maybe one of the biggest, most influential authors of her day. So it says, on the low hill immediately west of this spot stood the homestead claim shanty of Almanzo and Laura Ingalls Wilder. Miss Wilder, and it has her birth and death dates, is known all over the world as the author of the Little House books, a series of autobiographical accounts of pioneering by the Ingalls and Wilder families. 6 of her books have their settings in the De Smet area. The first 4 years tells of farm life at this location from 1885 to 1889. A shanty on the hilltop was the birthplace of the Wilders' only surviving child, Rose. Rose Wilder Lane. Miss Lane became well-known novelist, journalist, and political essayist. 2 of her 1930s novels, Free Land and Let the Hurricane Roar, describe South Dakota pioneering. She also wrote biographies, translated books, and served as a foreign correspondent. Her last reporting assignment took her to Vietnam in 1965. When at 78, Rose Wilder Lane was America's oldest war correspondent, although her career included travels around the world. Miss Lane stated that the entire pattern of her life was formed by the immense prairie skies, the acres of waving grain, and the struggling saplings of her Dakota childhood. 1.5 miles north of this spot is another quarter section of the land, which the tree claim of Laura and Almanzo Wilder. Some of the original tree plantings still survive. Here the Wilders also lived during their early married life, experiencing a fire which destroyed their home that was here. The death of an infant son and other natural disasters, which were part of the daily lives of the courageous South Dakota pioneers. No one, Miss Wilder wrote, who has not pioneered can understand the fascination and the terror of it. So they had a home right up there on the hill. And of course, as a lot of the homes associated with the Wilder family, it burned down. So it is gone, but this was where Rose was born. And their young child, who was only 3 weeks old when he died, so he didn't even have a name.
Eric, our wonderful tour guide, was telling us a story about the fire that happened right on this hill, and to their dying days, Rose was saying that she accidentally started that fire when
left the door open.
She left the door open on the stove, but Laura was convinced that the fire started from the wind blowing the curtains and the curtains hitting the stove. So neither one of the ladies, he said, would ever admit one or the other were right.
Yeah, which probably means Rose is right and Laura does not want to accept that her daughter accidentally burned down their home.
We don't know.
But who knows, yeah.
We don't know. It's history.
Kind of crazy that they, even though the house isn't here anymore, there's actually a trail opening right there. You can see where a car is driven through, but you almost want to believe it was a covered wagon. Well, my friends, thank you all for watching. This has been a fantastic trip to De Smet. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you love Laura Ingalls Wilder, look at some of our other vlogs. All I can say is I had a blast. What about you, Katie?
It was so much fun.
Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. Have a great night and goodbye.
find me